The world is on the edge. As the United States moves military assets toward the Middle East, the question lingers, is conflict inevitable? At least one aircraft carrier is now heading toward the region, a clear signal that tensions with Iran are reaching a breaking point. But what does this mean for the future, for the world? As we speak, U.S. military forces are preparing for a potential strike, with assets being positioned from air, land, and sea. This is not business as usual. This is about more than just positioning. This is about preparing for what could be a major escalation. The USS Abraham Lincoln, a powerful symbol of U.S. military might, is on the move. But is it enough to stop Iran's growing threat, or is it just the beginning? The clock is ticking. Stay with me as we break down the steps, the implications, and the potential consequences of what's unfolding. To understand the significance of these military movements, we must first grasp the gravity of the situation. The United States, through its military presence, is signaling a readiness to act swiftly and decisively. But why now? The history of U.S.-Iran tensions is long and complex. From the 1979 hostage crisis to the nuclear deal and its subsequent unraveling, the relationship has been one of confrontation and negotiation. But this time, something feels different. Iran's actions, its missile testing, and its growing influence in the region are pushing the U.S. to a point of no return. The decision to deploy military assets is part of a broader strategy, setting the force. It's a process that involves positioning, readiness, and preparation for the worst-case scenario. The question is not whether the U.S. has the strength to respond, but how far the regime in Tehran is willing to push before the military strikes begin. To truly understand why the United States is so focused on this region, we need to step back and look at the historical roots. The Middle East has long been a flashpoint where global powers clash over influence, resources, and security. But U.S.-Iran relations are particularly fraught. Since the Iranian Revolution of 1979, when the U.S. lost its longtime ally, the Shah, Iran has been a thorn in America's side. The U.S. responded with sanctions, support for rival states, and a constant military presence in the region. But in recent years, Iran's actions have become more brazen. From missile tests to proxy wars in Syria and Yemen, Iran's influence has only grown. The U.S. military's current positioning, destroyers, combat ships, and potentially missile defense systems, is a direct response to this growing threat. These aren't just strategic moves, they're a direct reaction to Iran's increasingly destabilizing actions. The cycle of tension continues to build, but will this time be different? And then, just like that, the situation shifts. A new flashpoint emerges: Iran's missile tests. U.S. intelligence confirms that Iran has recently been testing new missile systems, a clear violation of international norms and an act that could trigger a powerful military response. These tests are not just about showcasing power, they are a direct challenge to U.S. authority in the region. The question now: how will the United States respond? In the past, military action was always considered a last resort, but today, with aircraft carriers in transit and U.S. forces on alert, the line between deterrence and action is quickly blurring. The stakes are higher than ever. Iran's actions are calculated, but so are America's. The U.S. response, should it come, will be swift, aggressive, and focused on sending a clear message. This is not business as usual. The world is watching, and this first escalation could very well be the spark that ignites a larger conflict. But there's more beneath the surface of these military maneuvers. What we're witnessing is not just a display of force, but a highly strategic game of positioning. The mechanics of military power are complex, and the U.S. is preparing for every possible scenario. When we talk about setting the force, it's not just about sending ships and planes. It's about creating options for a president faced with a potentially catastrophic decision. The U.S. military planners are meticulously crafting responses based on Iran's next move. Each step is calculated, anticipating every possible reaction from Tehran. This is about more than just deterrence, it's about forcing Iran to reconsider its next steps. The goal isn't merely to show strength, but to create a situation where Iran knows that any further escalation could result in significant consequences. The system of checks and balances, the global power dynamics, and the underlying geopolitics are all in play. In a matter of days, U.S. military assets will be fully positioned. The question remains, how will Iran respond? And will the U.S. military have the final say? And then it happens, another major incident. Iran, pushing the limits once again, conducts an attack on a U.S. military base in the region. This time, it's more than just rhetoric or missile tests. It's a direct military strike targeting American personnel. The response is swift and severe. The world is now on the brink of an open conflict. The tension is palpable. U.S. forces already in position launch retaliatory strikes. It's a show of force unlike any before. The escalation has reached its tipping point. For Iran, the consequences are immediate and devastating. For the U.S., the decision to act was inevitable. Every piece of military hardware that has been quietly moving into place is now in play. There is no turning back. This is the moment where strategies shift from preparation to action. The U.S. military, with its overwhelming firepower, is now in full control of the situation. The battle lines have been drawn, and the world watches as the first shots are fired. Now, let's focus on the human toll. For the people on the ground, this is not just a geopolitical struggle, this is personal. The men and women stationed in the region, U.S. military personnel, their families back home, are living in constant uncertainty. Every day the threat of conflict looms larger. But what about the people of Iran? The ordinary citizens who didn't ask for this war? The impact on them is immediate. Economic sanctions, the risk of military strikes, and the constant tension. Life becomes a daily battle for survival. You feel it in the air, the fear, the anxiety, the uncertainty. For every military strike, there are countless families affected, dreams shattered, and futures upended. In the face of this, the question becomes, how many more innocent lives will be caught in the crossfire? The stakes are personal for everyone. For those who must fight, for those who are left behind, and for those who will bear the scars of this conflict long after the dust settles. While the focus is on the U.S. and Iran, the ripples of this conflict are felt worldwide. The Middle East is not an isolated region. Every action here sends shockwaves across the globe. From oil prices to global security, the consequences of a U.S.-Iran conflict are far-reaching. The U.S. has military bases throughout the region, and its allies, Israel, Saudi Arabia, are also directly impacted. In Europe and Asia, governments are watching closely, knowing that a full-scale conflict could shift the global balance of power. The global economy could face major disruptions. Oil prices could spike, affecting everything from gas prices at home to shipping costs worldwide. Meanwhile, geopolitical alliances will be tested. Countries will be forced to pick sides, those who support the U.S. and those who side with Iran. The global order could be reshaped by this conflict, and no nation will remain unaffected. This isn't just about the U.S. or Iran. This is a confrontation with implications that will resonate across continents, shaping the future of global diplomacy and security for decades to come. As we look ahead, there are three possible futures we must consider. Scenario 1, the best-case outcome. The United States, having demonstrated its military strength, successfully deters further Iranian aggression. A diplomatic solution emerges from the brink of war. Iran backs down, and both nations enter a new phase of cautious cooperation. The global economy stabilizes and tensions in the Middle East ease. The region breathes a collective sigh of relief. Scenario 2, the middle ground. Military strikes occur, but they are targeted and strategic, designed to weaken Iran's capabilities without spiraling into a full-blown war. The global economy takes a hit, but not irreparably. U.S. allies rally in support, and the conflict remains confined to the region. However, long-term instability persists, with the U.S. facing a prolonged presence in the Middle East. Scenario 3, the worst-case scenario. The conflict escalates into a wider regional war. Multiple nations are drawn into the fray, and the global economy plunges into chaos. The loss of life is devastating, and the Middle East becomes a battleground for years to come. The geopolitical landscape shifts dramatically, and the ripple effects are felt worldwide. The choice is clear. The path we take will shape the future, no matter which scenario unfolds. As the dust settles and the consequences of this momentous decision unfold, one thing becomes clear: the future is not yet written. What happens in the next few days and weeks will determine whether the world steps back from the brink of war or is pulled deeper into a conflict that will reshape our global order. The choices made now will echo through the halls of history. The question is, will we learn from past mistakes? Will we embrace diplomacy, or will we continue down a path of escalation that leaves only destruction in its wake? The situation in the Middle East is volatile, and the world is watching. But you, the global citizen, have a role to play in this story. The power to influence change lies not only with military leaders, but with each of us, our actions, our voices, our ability to demand peace. The stakes are too high to remain silent. The time for action is now. Will you rise to the challenge?